But what happened was, so all the weddings stopped, and I went from my website all of a sudden went gangbusters. So I went from doing 3 to 4, maybe 10 maximum deliveries a day to doing 30 a day. Because the community realised that the way that they could convey their emotions was through a messenger, which was a florist.
Yes.
We were one of the only messengers left that could trade. So we were sending flowers from sister to sister, say if you live down the road from each other, saying I miss you. We were sending them from parents overseas, being like, I don't know when I'm going to get to see you next. You know, from colleague to colleague, being like, I'm so sorry you lost your job today. And we were able to convey that message for people.
Welcome to another episode of The Journey, and a special one today because there are 2 guests in the studio with me, but we're focusing on one, and that's Renee Williams, owner and founder of the Real Florist in Albury. Renee, good morning.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Really well, and would you like to do the introductions for our second guest here?
This is my youngest daughter, Amelia. Say hello. Hi.
Hi, Amelia. You're going to play a part in this story, definitely, but we'll mainly talk to Mum, which I'm sure you'll be happy about. And Renee, it's great to have you in the studio, and it's going to be a very interesting journey, and it's going to involve all sorts, including COVID, which we'll get to soon. But first, we always like to start with your heritage to the region. Are you born and bred here, or did you come here from somewhere else? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, I was born here and I've lived here my whole life. I love this region. I grew up in Gindra and I've just recently moved back there. So my family are all there and my friends are all here. So it's such a beautiful place to live, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, to be honest.
Yeah. Have you lived anywhere else, or you've lived the whole time here?
I've lived my whole life here. Do you know what I love most about living here is that not only are all my family here, but my friends and family that aren't from here or have moved away from here always come back to visit.
Yeah.
So no matter what, it's a staple for them, and I get that pleasure of getting to see them, especially like they'll come unannounced and walk in the door of the business. And it's just such an exciting thing that it's a staple for them to come back to, and I get the pleasure of seeing them whenever they do.
Yeah, and as we always discuss in all of the journeys that I've been, it's such a wonderful part of the world for so many different reasons. But you never feel isolated here, really. I mean, we're close enough to just hit the highway and go north and south, and we're never too far away from anything that's happening in the big cities.
No, that's right. And we've got everything here you need. And it's just such a beautiful part of Australia. And I just, sometimes we'll be driving from Gindra into town and we'll go over the hill and you can see the snow on the top of the hilltops. And then in the middle of summer you can see, it's brown, but it's still beautiful. And then in the middle of spring, it's so green and lush. And it is really beautiful part of the region.
Yeah, seasons are underappreciated by a lot. You often hear people in places like Townsville or far north Queensland, and then they're like, I couldn't handle the winter and this and that, but it's too samey up there. It's always the same. It's always warm.
Yeah.
And okay, that's fine, but there's something beautiful about all of our seasonal change, and like you're mentioning, the snow, and it's just such a magnificent part of the world.
Yeah, you can go anywhere and do anything from here. It's so great. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's terrific. So talk to me a little bit about your childhood and what you used to love and where you went to school.
Yeah, so I grew up in Gindra, so I went to Gindra Public and then to Murray High. And I loved growing up in Gindra. My parents owned a small nursery on the main street of Gindra. So we'd ride our bikes to and from. We'd go into the shop every day. It really was a community-based little business. And when that closed down, my dad took it home. And started a backyard nursery from home. And I just remember doing my best to try and get out of school so that I could stay home and work with my dad.
Yeah.
And we'd sit and we'd do seedlings and fertilise the plants and water the ferneries and all of those kinds of things. And then on trade days, he'd pack the van full of plants and we'd go through all the nurseries of the region and drive through all the really small towns and stop at the bakeries. And, it was just beautiful way to kind of grow up. in a small business with my family around. And I just remember loving being at home and working by his side. And I think it's a real integral part of what I do now, but it's an education in itself, right? Being able to work beside your family members every day.
So I was going to ask where your love of flowers and the like started. Well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Do you think the love of flowers and horticulture and the like, do you think that it's inextricably linked to the relationship with your family rather than just on its own?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where it started for sure. And I remember, my grandmother saying she had dementia and she wasn't all there, and the nurses had said to her, "My granddaughter's coming today. So your granddaughter's coming today," and she was like, "Oh, Renee, she's like a beautiful flower," And I think it's just always been a part of me. Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. So through school, did you gravitate towards? I mean, there's not much in a school curriculum other than, I guess, biology a little bit. But
no,
there's nothing that's kind of specific to that, is there? So.
No, and for me, that's for myself and my career directory, I am really working towards getting something like floristry into the schooling system that is hands-on for kids that were kids like me. As I said, I would try and get out of school as much as I could.
Yeah.
So I could go home and work with my dad because I'm dyslexic. I've got dysgraphia and dyscalculia. So numbers jump around on a page for me. Letters jump around on a page for me. But getting my hands on something and doing something creative is quite literally where my calm and my happy place is. And I loved school because I loved the people and I loved the connections that you made. But the actual schooling itself was always such a difficult thing for me to try and get through. So now I've actually got my teaching program in a school at the moment, local school. And it's so funny because I asked the kids, is anyone here got any, difficulties in learning? And a couple of the kids put their hand up. I said, well, I have dyslexia, dyscalculia, and I'm undiagnosed ADHD, but definitely jump around a lot. And all of them could relate to that. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to give to other people that have those same difficulties that I had. So being able to provide this for other people has been such a special thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And so forgive my ignorance on the topic, but if you want to become a florist and you wanted to study as part of it rather than just work hands-on after school, is there a university course or TAFE course or something? How does it work? Do you just literally have to work in the industry?
There is courses. So I'm a qualified florist. I did my schooling in Melbourne, and I would travel to and from Melbourne once a week to go and do my floristry school. And
So there are specific kind of schools that just focus on that?
So you can do a floristry apprenticeship, which is what I did through Real Florist in Wodonga, actually.
Yeah.
So, but it's Victoria-based only. In New South Wales, the only place that you can do something like that are in the bigger cities. There's no option for that here regionally. So that does make it quite difficult. So my only option was to travel to and from Melbourne once a month for floristry training. So that's what I did, and I loved it thoroughly, but for me, that's the gap that's really missing regionally. So that's what I'm trying to change.
Because there's obviously a huge level of expertise around it.
Yeah.
To be a good one, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. After COVID, what happened was a lot of people really got into activities that brought them joy, right? And floristry is such a grounding part, of nature where you get your hands on. It's quite literally science. You get your hands on something that's natural and it's good for all of your well-being. So a lot of people were experimenting and playing and started small businesses out of that. But what is missing and is integrally missing is that you don't need qualification to do what we do. And it is an expression of creativity. But there is this big gap of knowledge that is lacking for our industry, which is such a shame. But with people who are educated, like myself, and there's a lot of educated florists, so we can share that information and bring people in and teach them what we know and share it with other people, then hopefully we will all get a little bit better at what we do.
Well, we are going to delve into the evolution of the business and how it came to be, but just very quickly, I mean, that's the fundamentals of the name, right? Yeah. The Real Florist is the fact that you are a real florist.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, people don't generally look for qualifications, but the fact that you have them and have all of that genuine expertise, I mean, that's just an extra layer to yourself and what you offer.
Yeah, exactly. And you can go, if you hired your plumber or your electrician who have done their qualifications and they turn around and gave you your invoice, you'd go, okay, because you're qualified and you know, and here you go. Where with floristry, there's a little bit of a different aspect where people don't expect to pay you for your expertise. Yeah. They like, well, the product costs A, so I only want to pay you for A. And so that's quite difficult to kind of get around and to educate people on the fact that we actually are quite educated in what we do and we work really hard.
Yeah.
So, and it's okay to have us when you need us, but when you don't need us, we're still working, trying our best to kind of get through the day. So it's a difficult aspect to kind of get across. And because you don't have to have a qualification, people don't really seem to hold a lot in that.
Are most florists qualified?
No, they're not. But doesn't mean they're not good at what they do. They've got their own creative flair and everything that you need for this role. However, the background knowledge and the hows and the whys and the information that's needed to succeed in what you're doing is the bit that I think sometimes is missing.
And people have qualifications for a reason. Yeah. I mean, and that is because the more knowledge that you have, it can only be a positive in whatever the industry is.
Yeah.
And ultimately, experience and knowledge are the things that make you good at what you do in any industry.
Exactly, and it is the difference.
All right, I want to go back to and we'll focus a little bit on how the business evolved. So I want to go back pre-COVID.
Okay.
And I want to go back to 2018 and an article in the Border Mail. Mm-hmm. You might remember it.
I might.
Sure. Yeah. But it was a focus on you and your partner at the time who you kind of bought out. Now, was it your sister-in-law?
My sister-in-law, yeah.
Sister-in-law. So it says here that this is from 2018. Mm-hmm. Renee, you wanted to focus on weddings, events, workshops, and local deliveries, and you were working from home at that time. Mm-hmm. So you obviously you have the qualifications. You knew that you wanted to work in and around that industry, but you did have young children at that time, and so you wanted to stay at home. Am I right so far?
Exactly. Yep.
So that happened, and then it says here, the Real Florist is already booked out for weddings this year and almost booked out for 2019. Mm-hmm. Then it says she is now taking bookings for 2020, which we obviously know is
my anxiety's really high all of a sudden.
COVID year.
Yeah.
So at that stage, it was a very different business from what you have now. It was from home and you were focusing on weddings, events, workshops and local deliveries. So was the plan to just keep doing that and working from home and going to events?
Yeah, that was the plan. And do you want me to tell you what happened in 2020?
In terms of, yes, we know COVID. So what happened to you in 2020?
Well, so what the plan was, so what we were doing is I was working from home. I had 32 weddings booked for 2020.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. And I had worked really hard and I was working 2 other jobs and I had the 2 girls at home. So I'd go to my pharmacy job during the day. I'd go work. Oh, you okay? I'd go work at the Albury Club in the evenings, and then I'd go home and I'd make the weddings, I'd deliver them and go and do all of that.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point I just built my website.
And did you want to, sorry to interject,
You're
but
right.
was the plan really to leave the other jobs and eventually focus
Yeah, so that's what
100%
I
on
had
this?
just done just before that. So it was the end of 2019. So I just built a website, and we were talking about what my plan for the future was and what I wanted to convey in the marketing of the website. And I hadn't named the business yet or anything like that. And my little girl who was 4 at the time, my eldest daughter, she was listening to the conversation, and I was saying, I want my website to convey the real connections that I have with people, because that is how I built this business. And I said, it's a community-based business. I just run it from home, but I really want to get that across. And my 4-year-old turned around to me and goes, Mum, are you a real florist? And I said, yeah, of course. And she's like, but are you the real florist? And I was like, oh my goodness me, yes. Yes, I am. And that is what we are conveying. And that's how it started. So, and that's when that article was written.
Yes.
And then, so yeah, as I said, I was booked out, had 32 weddings booked in, ready to go. And we got shut down, and I had 7 weddings in the space of what was meant to be a 2-week closure. When COVID happened, it was 2 weeks, meant to be 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
Only
Yeah, I
of
remember.
the, yep. And so I had, my phone started ringing at 6 o'clock in the morning with brides who were getting married that week or the week after, in tears. And it did not stop ringing until 8 p.m. that night. I did not get off the phone because I had 32 weddings booked in and 32 people concerned about what that's going to look like. And I had to come up with what that's going to look like for them right away. And I was like, whatever happens, I will make whatever I can do possible. I don't know the answers, but I will get them and I will make it happen. And so that over that 2-week period, we had 7 weddings. I think out of the 7 that were booked in, 3 went ahead and everyone else decided to postpone their weddings. So the 3 that went ahead, they got their celebrant, their photographer, and myself and them, and that's it. And so flower production had stopped and deliveries had stopped and all those things. So I was ringing around to different suppliers that I had made connections with over my time so far, being like, what can you get to me? And they were like, I've got this. I'm like, that's what I've got. So I'd call the bride and be like, this is what I have. And they'd say, yep, great, done. It was such a pivotal moment, not only in what I was capable of, but watching the community come together and actually really look at what was important to them in their journey of getting married. It really made people stop and look at what was necessary and what wasn't. And as difficult as that was, it was such a fantastic lesson for all of us, I believe, as it was the hardest pivot that I've ever had to do. Because as I said, I just hired a delivery driver because my deliveries had picked up so much with my website. So I had 1 staff member. So I'd gone from working from my kitchen that week, and then I thought, my business is lost. I've got 7 weddings.
Could you have ridden it out? Could you have gotten to the end and then just from 2021, which was still interrupted, so really it would have to have been midway to the end of 2021. Could you have just done that and then started up exactly where you're from, or
Well,
did you
I would have
feel
had
like...
to have gone back to my old job. Do you mean? Like I would have had to have worked somewhere, somehow. But what happened was, so all the weddings stopped, and I went from my website all of a sudden went gangbusters. So I went from doing 3 to 4, maybe 10 maximum deliveries a day to doing 30 a day. Because the community realised that the way that they could convey their emotions was through a messenger, which was a florist.
Yes.
We were one of the only messengers left that could trade. So we were sending flowers from sister to sister, who lived down the road from each other, saying, I miss you. We were sending them from parents overseas, being like, I don't know when I'm going to get to see you next. You know, from colleague to colleague, being like, I'm so sorry you lost your job today. And we were able to convey that message for people. And I realised in that moment, how important we are and how much of a necessity it is in what I do.
So then when did you kind of think, right, well, I am going to focus on that retail flowers, but a physical store as well? So how quickly did that process?
So just before COVID happened, the store that I'm in now became available. And I had driven past and I was driving to a wedding with a girlfriend who was giving me a hand. And I said to her, when we grow up one day, let's open a cafe florist. And she was like, I'll be a barista. And I was like, fantastic. Anyway, so the shutdown happened. My website started going off. I was getting every person I know that wasn't working to come and run deliveries for me. And so I thought, I can't do this from my house anymore. So I called the real estate and I said, would you allow me to do a 3-month pop-up shop? And they were like, definitely. And I said, great. So I called a barista coffee supplier and I said to them, would you train me in coffee? And he said, sure. I said, how do I get a coffee machine? He's like, I can organise that for you. And I said, fantastic, because I went to his cafe all the time. And so within 2 weeks, I got 3 staff, all who had previous coffee training, got them in, got them trained. I could do the flowers. They could do the coffees and the deliveries and the customer service, and we could work from there. So it was 3 months. I contacted all of the local small businesses that I worked with, sometimes at markets and things like that, because they had all closed down. And I said, I'm opening a shop and I want it to be all local. It's only for 3 months, but something that supports local business right now who need support. And you can't go to the markets anymore and sell your product. Would you like to sell it on my shelf? And they were all jumped on board. So all of a sudden we built this little local community base of local suppliers and makers who are all mostly with us still now.
Yeah.
And it was a pivot, and it was a quick pivot, but I just trusted my gut feeling and I just put one foot in front of the other and like, okay, what else can I do to support other people in this situation? Because I can still trade and they can't. Yeah. So what can I do to help?
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
I can hear the passion for local in your voice, and I know that that's incredibly important for you because you love to support locals, and it's become a major part of your life, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. And, it's almost a selfish thing to do because I support locals, but then they support me. And then that's how it continues to rotate. And in that moment, I think that's what COVID taught us most is how important your community is, because it's integral to success of anybody and the support of anybody. And for anyone to be able to achieve their dreams, they need to be well supported. And without a good family and community base around you, that's really hard to do. So it was just one of those moments where I thought, this is what I am here for.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And it is such a... you hear that, and a lot of it is just stereotypes and the like, but you often hear about towns or even cities that aren't welcoming to people that are new to the place. Now, you've been here from day one, but I've talked to people who have only lobbed up here fairly recently, and they all say it's an incredibly welcoming environment and people are so supportive. So there's definitely something in the water here in Albury-Wodonga that makes it very welcoming to outsiders, I feel. And it's probably, the fact that we are, connected so much by the Hume Highway and we do get a large influx of people. We're kind of used to it, aren't we? We're used to, but it's such a welcoming place.
It really is. And I honestly, I'd speak to a lot of people in my business, and that's the comment we get from everywhere. And they're like, oh, we love coming here and we love Albury-Wodonga and everybody is so kind and so welcoming. And I said, I think it really is because we're a connecting piece, and there isn't, that I know of, other communities like ours that have so much connection in the small community. We've got so many businesses and so many foundations set up in Albury-Wodonga and regionally that are just literally built to support each other. And it's so special.
Yeah. Tell me some of the things that you do outside of the business in relation to supporting business in Albury-Wodonga.
Yeah, so as I said before, everyone that is stocked at the Real Florist, from our coffee to our food to our giftware, is all locally made. That's literally, if it's not locally done, then we won't consider it. It is the pivotal part of the business. But once I got into the business and I had staff in there and I was training them, I realised that what I could provide was so much more than that. So before I opened the business and I was working from home, Albury Business Connect would run little seminars on small business mentoring and pieces. So I'd go to anything and everything, because I'm a people person and I worked at home alone. So it was my way of connecting with people, but it was also my way of getting business education, because I'm very good at my job, but the realities of running a business are much harder than making my flowers every day, obviously. So that was my way of kind of getting that education, and podcasting and things like that. So that's what I would do. And once I got into that area of business, I realized how important that is to small businesses like mine, and I wanted to be more involved. So I got on the board of Albury Business Connect, which I have loved. My term's just finished, but I have loved every single moment, and I have become out such a better business leader after being a part of that. And then through that, I also got, or before that, I got involved with Border Trust, which I love, and the Give 500 program. So Amelia here was growing her hair, and I had grown mine, and we were looking to donate it. So I contacted a few different organisations around town to see who we could donate it to, because I'm like, we could do something good with this, raise some good money and donate it locally. So both of us grew our hair really long, and I got in contact with Border Trust, and Give 500 was in its first year of production, and so I said, well, my daughter and I are going to cut our hair, and I'm going to raise money through the business, and so we donated the money there, and I've been a part of them ever since. So that's been such a beautiful thing to be a part of, and it's such a special part of our community. So those are some of the things I do, but I also do my best to support fundraisers locally everywhere. So I've been part of Stars of the Border and been a dancer in that, and that was really fun and really hard training. And I did rock and roll, which is something that my dad and I used to do as kids. When I was a kid, he'd take me to rock and roll classes, and we'd dance together. And so getting to do that again was really fun, and seeing the joy on his face. My dad would come and watch when we were rehearsing, and it brought so much joy. It was so fun, and my kids knew the routine inside out. And it's a really special thing to do, and the connections that you make with other local people that have community sense as well is so special and forever bonding.
Yeah.
And then we do a lot of work and fundraising for the local cancer centre here as well. So whenever they ask, we will put our hands up. So we quite often will do, $1 from every coffee will go back, and all of those kinds of things. So we try to be as community minded as possible, because it's such a special community that we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How do you find the time to balance everything out with two kids, and then the business, but also the extracurricular business things that you do as well? And I imagine a social life maybe thrown in there a little bit too. How do you fit it all in, Renee?
I don't know. This business was built for me and my girls. Quite literally, it was, when I started it from home, it was so that I could work from home with them by my side. And that has been the core ethos of the business ever since. So, but the community-minded part comes easy, because that's what I find so much value in, and that's where I feel I can really give a lot. I have a fantastic team at the Real Florist, and they are amazing. We are going through a pivotal change at the moment with the economic situation that everybody is in, which means I am taking a step back from some of the community work that I do to work more in my business. And that is what I have to do as a business owner and a business leader. And that's okay, because I love what I do every day.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely sounds that way. A lot of people have preconceptions about what it's like to run a small business. Is it as difficult as you thought it would be?
It's harder. It's so much harder. I love what I do so much. But as I said before, I make any excuse to get out of school because the numbers jump around on a page for me. So what I did when I first started my business was I got good people on my bus. People that knew how to do the things I didn't know how to do or I didn't want to do. I got found and sought out the best people for that, and I engage with them to do that part for me and with me. And if they can't do it for me, I get helped teach me how to do it myself. And that is how you have to run a small business, because it is grinding, and you do spend every day, like for example, this morning, I know that my kids will wake up at around 7 o'clock. So I wake up at 5:30 and I do my social media posts and I check my accounting and all of those things. And I write. This morning I was writing processes, and I take that time to do those things. And sometimes the balance is not right. And that's okay, because it's a seesaw, I believe. Sometimes you have to lean into your business, and sometimes you have the flexibility to lean out, and you have to just do one thing at a time, one foot in front of the other. And as long as you are being integral to what your values are, then that is what matters. And when your values are not part of your business anymore, then that's when it's time for you to move on.
Yeah. What do you consider is your greatest achievement so far?
My babies are obviously my greatest achievement. They are very balanced and beautiful children, and they can sell ice to Eskimos. They'll come into I had a guy walk past one day, and my little girl had said to him, "Do you want a coffee?" And he said, "I don't drink coffee." And she's like, "Well, you should try, because my mum has the best coffee." So he came and he said, "I don't drink coffee, but that little girl told me I should get one." So that's a fantastic achievement. I have achieved a lot in a very short amount of time. Even though I've been working in floristry for 13 years, I've only had the business at the Real Florist for, say, 7, but the shop itself for 4, going on 5 now. And in that very small amount of time, I have achieved a lot. But I have achieved it some days with grace, and some days in a corner rocking and crying and not knowing what the right next thing to do is, but I've done it anyway.
Yeah. Would you change anything?
No.
Really? I mean, other than the fact that we all make mistakes and we all have difficult times in our life, and that shapes us.
You have to make mistakes to get it right. You have to. Like, mistakes, you can look at it, if you stop and only look at it as a mistake and be really hard on yourself and not move forward from that mistake and make better choices next time, then that's your own doing. But if you make a mistake, the right thing, and then after that, do the right things and go, okay, I made that mistake. How do I do this better so I never make that mistake again? Then you're going to be successful. And success is literally only what you think success is. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. For me, success is being able to be flexible with my children and making my business revolve around them. So our trading hours revolve around what I need to do with my children, and that is successful enough. If I can keep doing that, that's enough for me.
Well, looking forward, say over the next 5 years, you've got the beautiful shop in a beautiful old building in Swiss Street. Will you continue there for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I will. As I mentioned before, I'm working in the training space, a floristry training space, and I've been working on that for the last 2 years because, as I said, I realised there was a hole in the market, that there was the education piece was missing after COVID. So I will continue to work on that as well. So the mentoring and small business coaching for floristry and training the trainers. So that's what I intend to do, is working with other people within my industry who are missing the educational piece and being able to provide that to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you clearly love what you do. You've definitely found your passion in life, which is really what Everyone always says, if you can find your passion in life, well, you're really lucky, and you should savour that and appreciate that.
Exactly. And you know that saying, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
That's it.
That's not really true. If you love what you do and you work every day in your life going forward doing what you love, you will work harder than anybody else. But what you get back from it will be so much more valuable to you and your family and everybody around you if you are working really hard and you love what you do. And that's what I have. And it's really special, and I am so grateful every day. And as much as I have made some terrible big mistakes along the way that have been really difficult to get through, and very costly to get through. But at the same time, I've learnt really hard lessons, and I have done better because of them.
Yeah. And that really is the right way to look at it as well, isn't it? You can't regret those things. They've happened. You use them as part of your foundation and move forward. Amelia, is your mum a great florist?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real florist. Before you go, let's knock out our little wrap-up questions here. And you're the perfect person to ask this. So if you have some people coming into town, never been here before, what will be, say, your top few must-do activities when you're here on the border?
Well, number one would have to come into the Real Florist and get a coffee and some flowers, obviously, right? Number two would have to go and eat in our region. There is so many amazing food facilities here, and you walk in and you're talking to the business owners. And it's such a beautiful thing to see. You walk in and you can see how much they love being there, and they want to serve you, and they want you to get the most out of it. So whether it be the locally owned ice cream parlour, or the locally owned pizza shop, or whatever it is, it's all locally owned and it's so authentic and lovely. So get in and support our locals and go and see our economy, because it is amazing. And then go and see the sites around Albury-Wodonga. Like, we've got such beautiful towns that surround us. And we support them and they support us. So get out and see them, the wine regions, the snow regions, all of the things. But our favourite place to go, we go out to Lake Hume, get an ice cream, and then we go across the bridge and there's this cute little park there. And the kids like to play in it. It looks like a fish. Is that
the metal fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
At Bellbridge.
Yeah, at Bellbridge. And the kids pretend like they're in a little spaceship, and then they get in the water, and I take my shoes off and I sit on the grass, and it's some downtime for us. And it's just it's just one of those little nichey places where you can go and be kind of secluded, but be see the best of what we have to offer here in our region.
Yeah, well said. Are you a sweet or savoury person?
Oh, I like to mix them together.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I'm one of those weird people that likes a salty with something sweet. I would say I'm a savoury person, but put like some Nutella on a cracker and I'm a happy lady.
Right. And finally, do you have any recommendations for us, whether it's something you're reading, watching, listening to?
Oh, that's a good one. I listen to
Do you watch a lot of telly?
No, I don't have time for TV.
Podcasts?
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I am reading a book at the moment by James Cleary. Hang on. Give me one moment. We are listening to the audiobooks of Harry Potter as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Classy.
Hang on. I'm going to tell you because it's brilliant and I am so deep in it right now that I love it. It is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Atomic?
James Clear. Yeah, Atomic Habits.
I
James
love that name.
Clear. Yeah. And it's literally about the small habits that you can put into your day that make your day better. And then and habit stacking. So for me, I never used to make my bed. I just run out the door. So now I stop and I take a moment to make my bed. And it's the simplest, smallest part of the day, but I know when I get home that one thing is done.
Yes.
And I don't have to think about it again. And then from there, I stack my next habit on top of that.
Oh, that's clever.
And it's clever, and I've really, really enjoyed. I've got a business mentor, Peter Stewart, who most local people know. He's a fantastic conveyancer, but also a fantastic mentor. And she recommended that book to me, and I was
Atomic Habits.
Yeah, and she probably recommended it to me every year for the last 5 years, but for some reason this year I decided to listen to it, and I am loving it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Renee Williams, owner and founder of The Real Florist, Swift Street in Albury. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing your journey, and thanks for popping in too, Amelia.
So thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.